I'm looking. All right, so should I read the questions and answer them?
Yes, that would also be great.
Okay. So, Peldi, here's a question for you. Oh, well, thank you for having me, first of all. This is wonderful. Oh, you're welcome. You're such a great guy. Oh, stop it. Come on, let's get to the questions. Okay, here we go. Question number one. Balsamiq is not metric-driven. It's people-driven. So, do you have more UX research people in the team? What is the role of the customer champion? Oh, what a great question. So, yes, we're very much people-driven, meaning that we have analytics set up, but I never ever look at it. I realize that this is a luxury that a lot of people don't have, meaning that business has always gone really well for us, and I don't have the problem of trying to maximize the funnel. If anything, our problem from the beginning has been trying to keep up with demand. So that's why we don't look at analytics, but we talk to our customers instead. So I don't know if maybe the reason we have been so successful is because we talk to customers instead of looking at analytics. I don't know if it's a cause or an effect. But so we have a team called the Customer Champions team. We have 3 people spread around the globe, and they're basically tech support. And their job is to answer any questions our customers have and report back ideas that our customers have, and basically be the voice of the customer inside the organization. We have over 500,000 customers, and 3 people in tech support and 3 people in sales support that answer questions about licensing and stuff. So product is pretty solid. We don't need more people than that to do that. And then when it comes to user research, I've been doing quite a bit of it. I've been interviewing existing customers this year. I do 1 hour-long session in which basically I ask them what their process is and how wireframing fits into that process, and basically how we can serve them better as a company. And I highly recommend talking to your customers. I do about 2 interviews a week, and I record them, and then we watch it together, and we get all these great ideas from each of the interviews. So does that answer your question?
No.
Oh, yes, it does. Thank you very much. Yes, next question. If you guys have any unscripted questions, I would love those too.
I think maybe I have one unscripted one. I think we have one of the participants. He works at Amazon.
Oh, nice.
So he's a UX designer. So can you tell me a little bit about how do you do more about user research? When you said user research, what do you basically look for? Do you look for more in the customer needs, or do you look for pain points? Because the user research itself is a very vast field. You can do survey and you can do some qualitative analysis. So how do you do, which kind of user research you do?
That's a great question. So we don't do very much because we have very, very active and friendly customers that tell us what's wrong or what they would like since the beginning. We have a very active forums, community forums that you can go check out, and people email us or add comments on Facebook, or they send us tweets. So it's a constant stream of ideas and bug reports. So that's why we don't really have much of a need to formal user. The user research that I do is very much qualitative and not quantitative because I'm allergic to metrics again. And so I just like to talk to people one-on-one, and out of each conversation I get so many ideas and so many pain points that I know that it hurts. It's very effective. With metrics, you can sort of read whatever you want in it, and it doesn't really hurt as much. When you talk to someone, you can see how frustrated they are with this problem or how excited they are about this idea, and that has sort of a higher bandwidth emotionally. And so it results in us getting stuff done quicker.
Cool.
So that's really all we do. We don't do more than that. We don't do surveys. We don't want to bother our customers. The user research that I do, there's a sign-up form on our website that says, talk to Peldi. And people sign up, volunteer, and then we send them a t-shirt afterwards, and what's up? Shall I move to the second question?
Yeah, yes, please.
All right, next question for you, Peldi. How do you measure your success? Really by looking at revenue and profits. That's really the only numbers that we look at. But even that's not really much of a focus. Like I said, we've been lucky to make enough, plenty of money for us to continue to grow without really trying so hard. We focus on the product. We focus on trying to make our customers successful as quickly as possible. And the rest kind of comes by itself. There's this quote that I really love by Steve Martin, the comedian. He says, people always ask him, how do you get an agent? How do you get a script? How do you make it in Hollywood? And his answer is, be so good they can't ignore you. So basically he says, focus on yourself, be extremely good, and everything else people will come to you. And so that's been my approach from day one. We try to make a product that really, really works. It's really fun to use, makes people more awesome, and then everything else. That's really what we focus on. So we don't really measure our success, but we have a room in Slack called the Love Fest, and whenever people send us a nice message or a nice tweet or something where they say how much they love us, we post it in there for the whole team to see, and the morale goes up, and we get like 5 or 6 things a day. So that's really, I think, what we care about. Yes.
I think we have one question.
I actually work in the product management. Can you hear me?
I can't really hear
Maybe
you.
it's better to come closer.
Maybe you can repeat the question after Neil.
Yeah, I think I'm just.
Hi. I work for the product management team at eBay, and I was just, as I was hearing you talk, it felt like you guys had a really good understanding of, when you started, that what is like the single biggest need or like use case that people use Balsamiq for. So, and it may have changed now because I guess you guys are more of a B2B solution as well now, but enterprises are using you. But like in the beginning, what was it like? Who would tend to use you, Balsamiq?
Thank you. Great question. I don't think it's actually changed much. We've grown. We've gotten a lot more polished since the days where I started. I was by myself. Our website was better. Our content is better, and there's more of it. But the customers are always the same. Product managers, developers, designers, and they use it to communicate with each other or with customers. Right? We have a lot of clients that have an idea, entrepreneurs that have an idea, and they use us to put it on paper and then work with developers on it. So the use case has been very clear from the beginning. It was a problem that I had as a developer in a software team at a building in San Francisco. It was a tool that I needed, and I knew that my product manager that I worked with was brilliant, but didn't have a tool that was easy enough to use so that she could design her ideas. And so I decided to build it. So I scratched my own itch, which was an easy way to find product market fit. But yeah, we've been really lucky to hit on something that is focused enough, that's easy to explain. I can't imagine how, does not apply to email, right? I can't imagine what it means to try to reach everyone. That's too scary for me. I want to be able to do that. So of course, in your case, do as much metrics as you want. You're talking about big numbers, so your metrics actually have some meaning. You can do A/B testing and everything. For me, it's a much smaller community, much smaller, group, and so I can afford to just go with the personal route instead of the phone chat. I don't know if that is.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. All right, moving on. Oh yeah, hello, hi. Sorry, I'm making you move. I wish I could be there. I love it.
Hi there. I have two questions. First is, can I use, if I use Balsamiq for a mockup for mobile apps, can I make gestures in the program?
Okay. The answer is no.
Okay. And the second question is, can I realize a link or a connection to a MySQL database, because to simulate the big, but only a little bit to simulate the real
Interaction.
yeah.
The answer is also no.
Okay.
But this is great. I can go to the next question, which I think explains why we don't want to do that. The question is, why do you think prototyping is a waste of time? I've been saying this more and more openly. I've thought about this for years, but now I guess I'm trying it out to see what reaction I get. Basically, there's people consider us a prototyping tool, but I don't like that. We're a wireframing tool. People don't like the term wireframing, but I'm committed to making it sexy again. Basically, they're very different things, right? Wireframing is basically sketching like you do on a whiteboard or with pencil and paper, right? Very quick, low fidelity, throw it away, do it again, do a few iterations, right? That's wireframing. Prototyping is more about trying to mimic the end product. So usually high fidelity, dynamic content, data coming from the server, animation, conditional flow, adaptive views, or reactive, depending on the size of the screen. So that's a completely different beast. And I think that's usually detrimental to the process. I know that you guys are getting a demo of another prototyping tool later. I'm sorry. But I think that prototypes, even though there's a bunch of action in the space, there's tools coming up here and there, I think they're actually harmful. Here's why. A number of reasons. One is that building a prototype takes a long time. Regardless of the tool, and there are some great prototyping tools there, you're not going to do it in half a day, right? You're going to try and mimic the product as much as possible, or at least the flows that you want people to try. And so you have to hook up everything and add the hover action, add the data and everything else, right? So you work on it, say, for a few days, probably a week or two. So what happens when you work on something for a couple of weeks? Inevitably, you grow attached to it. We're only human, right? It becomes your thing, your little baby that you created, right? All right, so now, what if it sucks, right? You spend 2 weeks on it, you send it to people for review, and it sucks. Do you think people are going to give you honest feedback? They know you spent 2 weeks on it. They're going to go, maybe let's make a little change. And you're going to be, no, it takes so long to make these changes. I don't want to make the changes. So in the end, I saw this happen. We used to do this on Adobe, and I thought it was ridiculous. What happens in the end, you make a compromise. You only make a little change so that you're going to have to spend more time redoing the whole prototype. And so in the end, you ship a product that's suboptimal only because you chose the wrong process, right? So your customers are not going to be as happy as they could be, and it's your fault, right? If you said use one frame, you can throw them away. It takes 5 minutes, right? So that's problem number one with prototyping. And I see this all the time. The other thing is that prototypes give you this sort of false sense of security, meaning that, oh, look, the prototype behaves this way, so I know what the end product is going to behave like. That's wrong. That's inevitably false, because when you go to real code, it's never going to look exactly like prototype. It's not going to feel the same way. Some things are going to be too hard to do. They're going to make changes. And so really you have to retest it all with the real thing as well, right? The third problem with prototyping tools is that it becomes prototyping tools are hard to build, hard to use. You have to learn how to wire everything up in the data and all that stuff. And what happens is that the designer who knows how to use the tool gets an advantage compared to the business person, the product manager, the programmer. Just because they know the tool, their ideas are going to win more often than others because they're able to express them better. And that, again, might result in a suboptimal product. In my team, we had a fantastic product manager who had great insight on making, designing user interfaces that were fun to use and effective. The graphic designer, the designer was more of a graphic designer. He knew everything about color and etc. But his ideas for UIs were not as good. But because he knew the tool, we would go with his idea because he presented it better with a fancy drawing. That's why I built Balsamiq, because I thought, this is not right. We should have an even playing field, just like we can all get to the whiteboard and sketch at the same time with the same ability. We should have a digital tool that allows us to communicate that way as well. So what we suggest instead, and what we do at Balsamiq, is we do wireframe, and then we go straight to code. 90% of the time, people now work with developers who are really fast at turning a design into something that you can play around with. We're no longer doing waterfall where, it's a spec, and then you send it over the wall to the development team, and then 4 months later you see something. Nobody does that. So do a couple of key screens, go to the developer, get them involved right away, get them to implement it with real code that you get to reuse, play around with it. If it's not good, fine, do another wireframe, throw away 15% of that code, keep the rest, change whatever needs to be changed, and then you have the code. It's so much faster that way, and you can put it in front of customers, and it's the real thing, right? Or at least maybe the data is a fake one, but the UI is the actual thing. So that's my rant. I'm interested to hear what you think about it. And that's why we're not doing swipes or data driven. You can do, if you want to do that, use a prototyping tool. But just show the screens to people, and that's probably enough. Put a bunch of images and they swipe right to see the next one. Or print them out and do them on paper prototyping with a printer. And at least while you do that, you're talking to them, you're seeing how they react. You're going to get a bunch of information that way, instead of sending it out to a bunch of strangers who click around and, for a few pennies. So mechanical turns kind of stuff. Yes?
Do you see difference between MVP and prototype, or is both for you the same?
What's the difference between something and prototype?
MVP, minimum viable product, and prototype.
MVP and prototype. Well, the prototype is not real. Usually the prototypes are made with prototyping tools, so that you can't ship a prototype. Some people do prototypes with real code, like Bootstrap or whatever, and that's fine. That's more of that's closer to an MVP. But usually, things you do with Framer, things you do with Acture or Envision, those are not real, right? They're not real code. So MVP is something that you ship, something that customers actually use. It's a product. That's not a prototype. The prototype is something that some people do in order to decide what to put in their MVP.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not familiar with your product yet,
No.
but well, it takes about 30 minutes, I guess. So is wireframing obviously a useful tool for the development team and to instruct then developers, but is it also communicating an idea clear enough to the end user?
Right. So wireframing is very useful for the very early stage of project. There's one thing I call it a thought tool, and then we say that we try to go at the speed of thought, just like you can do with a pencil. So the first phase is you have an idea and you want to clarify it to yourself. And so a lot of people do this on a little notebook, and that's totally fine, or you do it on a whiteboard, or you do it using a wireframing tool. And basically, you're sketching out a design for a key screen of your application, website, whatever you're doing, right? And so this is a very creative phase and very personal phase. Usually you do it alone. In our tool, we give you background music that's all like Zen-like for concentration. That lasts 25 minutes, so you can do a Pomodoro, with that. And so you turn it on, and basically you transmit from your brain to paper. And so that's really useful to clarify the idea for yourself. Then, when you do that, the next important thing is to iterate. So we suggest people throw it away and start over and see if they get a completely different idea. And then maybe do it 2 or 3 times, then maybe you can do one that's the best of it. So then the next step is to get feedback on it. And so we have a look that looks like it's hand-drawn because we want people to give honest feedback. If the wireframe looks too polished, you fall back in the same trap of the prototype where people think you took so long making that wireframe that they don't give you honest feedback. They don't want to hurt your feelings. So that's why we say go keep the low fidelity sketchy so that it looks rough. So you get feedback, and you get feedback depending on who you are. From the if you're a business person, you definitely want to show it to the development team. They can tell you what's doable, what's not doable. You want to show it to the end user. They can you can give them some tests saying, okay, what do you think? Try to sign up. Where would you look? You can do some quick usability studies that way. We do it. We put it on our forum with our customers. We say, hey, we're thinking of building this feature that you asked for. We're thinking of building it this way. What do you think? And they use our tool much more than we do. We're too busy making it. So they know why they wanted that feature. And so they will send us their wireframes with that same idea. And we combine it together, and then in the end we get a much better design. And then a lot of developers that do consulting, they use it when they go to a client, when they're getting requirements instead of getting just vague text. They bring their laptop and they're like, okay, let's design it together, and that's what I'm going to do for you. And it just reduces the risk so much. And again, the wireframe is a great way to do that because you can do it in real time with the client in 20 minutes. You go straight to prototyping, you're not going to be able to do that. You have to do that on your own, without distractions. You can't do it real time. It's just too much work. Does that answer your question more or less? So wireframes are good for these very initial critical phases. Thank you. All right. Any other questions, or should I move on to number 4?
I think we should move on to number 4.
All right, number 4. It sounds nice in theory, you're customer-centric, but you will get a lot of feature requests from your customers. If you try to implement most of the requests, then it will result in complex software not usable. It's against your philosophy, life too short to develop bad software. How do you manage feature requests from customers? Great question. This is very normal. If your product is successful at all, you will get people with ideas on how to make it better. Lots of ideas. Some will be good, some will not be good. It takes some guts to say no. It depends, first of all, on your product. If you're doing custom development for one client and 50% of your income comes from that one client, well, maybe you can't say no as often as we can. Our tool is very inexpensive, $89 a person for a desktop license. And so we can say no to Microsoft and not really care, because we are high volume, low price kind of system. So it depends on what you're doing. What we do is we try to be very opinionated on what the tool is about and what's in scope and what's not in scope. And we tell people right away. We don't just say, oh, we'll consider it. We'll say, no, we're never going to do that. Just like I told the person I can't see anymore down there. We're never going to do swiping. We're never going to do data-driven, because that's not what we're about. If you want that, there's lots of other tools that can serve you better. So being very explicit, being very opinionated helps us maintain our focus. That said, we take good ideas from customers all the time. We even implement things that I didn't want to implement if enough people ask for it and they really want it. So, for instance, when I started Balsamiq, I didn't want to build a desktop tool because, come on, it's 2008. Who uses the desktop anymore? Well, actually, lots of people love desktop tools still. So really, it's still like 60% of our revenue. We're a shareware company. Remember Winamp? I'm dating myself. We're still a shareware company in 2017. Yay! But I didn't want to do that. So during the beta, even, people were like, "Oh, I want this on the desktop." I was like, "No." It took like 3 weeks to convince him, and then I said, "All right, everybody wants it. I'll do it." And I'm glad I did, because that's still what brings home most of the revenue. So it's not easy to say no. You have to do it a lot, but sometimes you have to say yes. I guess that's my not very useful answer. But yeah, the more explicit you can be in why you're saying no, the better. People understand that maybe they don't really need that, or maybe they just need to look for another tool. We send people to other tools all the time. When we see someone who comes in with all these questions that we don't plan on doing, we're like, "Hey, look, we Googled it up. You should use this tool. You're going to be happier there." And we can do that because we're again, one customer doesn't make much of a difference for us. We're lucky that way.
Okay.
Any follow-ups?
So,
Hey, again.
as a product manager, I'm always curious, how products or companies keep their feature set like really on point, because there's always people are always probably asking you, why don't you add the prototyping stuff? Why don't you add the simulation stuff? But you've, like, as a philosophy, chosen to go down a particular path. Was this hard? Because I imagine it comes at the expense of, revenue potential, or like making the company bigger. And how do you guys choose?
Certainly it does, but growth has never been the end goal for us. I wanted to build a one-person company. That was my dream. I had to hire because we were so successful, but I didn't want to. I waited until I was going to die under the load before I hired someone. So growth is not my focus. My focus is to take a very focused problem and solve it better than anyone else. And so wireframing it is. I get calls from venture capitalists once or twice a week, and they always say, "Oh, if you do prototyping, then we're going to go after this and that, and you can grow so much." And I say, "I'm not interested. Go do it with someone else." There's plenty of need for a wireframing tool, and more people are getting into the field, and usability is becoming the thing that people compete on. Competing on features is very 90s. Now it has to be good. And so there's always going to be new customers, new students that become that enter the workforce, and they need to wireframe. There's the cost of starting a startup is going down, so a lot of entrepreneurs have ideas, and they need to wireframe their ideas. So that's plenty for us. I don't want any more of this. And I think that the focus actually pays off. We're able to keep our tools simple to use because we just don't add too many features. And when we add them, we try to add them sort of elegantly, where if it's an advanced feature, you kind of have to find it. You can do it, but it's not right in your face, right? We do that sometimes as well. I think that it does take a lot of discipline. Some of my programmers would like us to build a plugin system so you can extend it with your own shapes. And I'm like, no way. When I'm dead, you could do that. No, we're a starter tool. We're the first tool that people use when they get into UX. That's it. And then they graduate to something else if they need to. That's fine. It has to be simple enough that, my biggest fear is that people say, "Oh, I probably use 20% of your features." That is huge failure. Right? We want a simple tool where people feel like they get it, they rock it, and they own it, and they are super powerful when they use it. And so we're almost done adding features. Now what we're working on is we're rebuilding the whole thing so that we're not in Flash anymore. That's almost done with that. Spending 2 years on it. We're going to build a native versions for desktop and tablets. We want to do that too. When we're in bed and we have an idea, we want to wireframe it really quick, right? Maybe you have the iPad, you don't have the whole laptop next. And that's it. I can't wait to be sort of done with features and then focus on education, right? Because the tool is just a tool. With a pencil, you can draw really well, or you can draw like me, right? So now we're spending a lot of effort educating people in how to wireframe. What does it mean to use a button versus a checkbox versus a radio button, right? So we're investing a lot in that. That's where I want us to go. The tool, I can't wait until we send out a newsletter that says, "Hey, guess what? No new features this month." Because people don't want change. They don't want new features. They want you to leave it alone. They want it to be up, to be fast, and that's it. Then once the product is complete, and it does most of the things, leave it alone. Support it really well, but don't add features. Otherwise, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. Photoshop, I used to use Photoshop 10 years ago, and I was okay with it. I could do it. Then I didn't use it for 10 years, and now I tried it. I can't even select a layer. They added so much crap. It's insane, right? You have to be someone who takes 2 classes of Photoshop to do even the most basic thing. And of course, Sketch is eating their lunch, right? Because it's just insane. It's insane. Sorry, rant over. They got dark here. That's okay, falling asleep? All right, yes, Steve.
Hey, I feel pretty interesting regarding your features roadmap. So I was wondering, have you heard some feature requests from your customers, and how do you interact with the feature request? And do you build your roadmap just based on the feature request, or based on the competitor analysis, or based on your gut feeling about your product?
Okay, so the question is, how do we choose what feature to do and what feature to take from customers? All right, so there's very much a vision that I had from the beginning of what the perfect wireframing tool should do. And I think we're almost there, but the vision evolves. It evolves a lot because of what customers suggest. They have great ideas sometimes, and they take us in good direction. So, for instance, the linking feature, which I don't really like, I didn't want to do. You can link things together. I didn't want to do it because it's a little bit of a prototyping feature, right? But so many people wanted it, and they convinced me that it's useful even if you're not doing prototypes, and so we did that. And that resulted in more sales, etc. But some changes to the vision are dictated by the market. So we're going to be building an iPad app because we love it. But when we started in 2008, there was no iPad. So that wasn't part of the original vision. So we're dictated very much by what we hear from customers, what's still left over from our own original vision. Like right now, we're adding real-time collaboration, so two people can edit at the same time, which is something that I've been meaning to do for a long time, and other things like that. Built-in commenting and reviews and stuff like that. So we still have some features that I have written down from 2008 that we still have to work on. And then, so market changes, customers, my own ideas, not competition. We never look at competitors. Never. I feel like it's kind of a desperate move when you have to do that. You should be good enough on your own. So we never look at competitors. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if that answers your question. Yeah? Or did you follow up?
Sorry, one more question. So did you see the difference between the vision that you see or predict from since 2009? And another question is that how can you vision your product in 5 years? Do you already have this kind of vision? And what would it be?
Not really. No. I can't wait to be done with it, frankly. The product is mature. It took 9 years. So maybe after like 3 years of development, I started saying, I think we have 1 more year development of this, and then we'll be done and we'll do something else. Then the next year, I said the same thing. And then the next year, I said the same thing. So I said that for 5 years, and now I don't say this. Because the more you do, the more it's always there's always room for making it better and better and better, even if it's little things here and there. There's always bugs to fix. And then there's changes like flash dying, right? And so we had to spend 2 years redoing the whole thing, exactly the same, but actually it worked in JavaScript. Basecamp. I was talking to Jacob Fried, and I said, "All right, you guys focus on Basecamp now. You change the company name. It's no longer 37 Signals. You just do one product." And I asked him, "What happens when you finish? When the product is mature?" He said, "We'll do it again." And they've been doing that every 2-3 years. They do that. There's a good talk by DHH at the Business Software Conference from last year called Rewrite. I highly recommend that. Basically, he says you learn a bunch while with a product that's out in the world. After a few years, you want to compete with your best ideas from 3 years ago, right? You know, you learn. We're doing it right now. We have a web app called My Balsamiq that's been out for 5-6 years. Now we're redoing it completely. We're doing another one. We're going to keep My Balsamiq going, and we're doing another one. We're going to take everything that we've learned from running that for 6 years and build what we think people actually want. So we took away a bunch of features that we thought were going to be great, but people didn't actually use, and we took them away. Instead, we added what people wanted. So I'm totally fine with solving the same problem over and over. Maybe there is no end. Every few years, you kind of have to redo it. FreshBooks, I don't know if you know it. What they did is they wanted to rebuild because, again, they had learned everything that people wanted over the years. And but they couldn't just rebuild everything because some features you just want to throw away. That's really hard. Some people really depend on those features. So what they did is they started a company with a different name to compete with FreshBooks. And they released it, and they ran it for, I don't know, however many months, and got feedback, and it was like a secret startup. And then after a while, they said, hey, guess what? This is now the new FreshBooks. And they kept the old one running for the old people. That's kind of the name of the game these days, and it's really fun, actually.
Okay. I think
All right.
we can move to the next question.
Sure. Do you follow any process like agile or lean? I guess we're not very big on labels. Agile is more for consulting companies. That's what it's optimized for. We're not one, so I guess we're lean. We talk to our customers all the time. We ship things all the time. We get feedback all the time. I'm not big on labels. We use GitHub. We use branches. We use pull requests, code reviews. We use all the best practices. But all right. Next question. A working professional, marketing, sales, product manager with 5+ years of professional experience has several ideas, thinking of starting a startup, but he doesn't know coding. How can I use Balsamiq for my MVP idea validation? Just do it. Just draw it. Make some key screens, put them in front of people, and learn from that and iterate. If you learn that you're really terrible at wireframing, hire a professional. There's a lot of great UX consultants. You want to look for information architects, mostly. That's money well spent. And then, with a few hours, you can do the rough part in Balsamiq so that you can talk to them, and then they can clean it all up. And do it. One tip that I would like to give if you're just starting to wireframe is to be very much aware that the human brain, once it gets started on an idea, we get really excited, and it's hard to stop. And so what we do is we end up putting everything in the wireframe. So that's fine, you can do that, but then when you save it, instead of calling it version 1, call it version 3. Because really, you're not going to be able to put all that stuff out, and some of it is probably crap. So save it as version 3, then do save as version 2, and start deleting stuff. Then do it again, save as version 1, and delete some more stuff. And that's your MVP. Build that. Build the stuff that you absolutely must build in order to show your value, right? And then see what people say. We do it with features all the time. People, we go nuts about this. People, we design our own fonts, right? And people said, oh, it doesn't have Cyrillic characters in it. And we said, you're right, sorry. And then they said, oh, but more and more people, they wanted, like they all complained about these 4 or 5 specific Cyrillic character. And so we did a release with just those 4 or 5. And we said, all right, is this enough? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's, some people were happy. Some other people said, no, I need these other ones. So we did another release with another, 15 characters. Even just that simple feature of adding the Cyrillic set to our font, we shipped it in 3 different releases because maybe that 4 was enough. Right? Why invest in this effort to design stuff if you don't know people are going to do that? So yes, definitely useful for MVP and version 3 trick. I use it all the time with myself as well, and it works really well. Okay, any other questions before I move on?
Nothing. Come on.
All right, so we have 2 more. One is, it's around 9 years of Balsamiq. What 3 most important lessons learned by starting Balsamiq and the journey until now? Okay, so 3 lessons we've learned from this journey. Wow, that's a $1 million question. Let's see. One that I haven't seen much talked about, but that I think is pretty useful, is this idea that each problem requires a specific kind of company to solve that problem. So for instance, I wanted to build a tiny wireframing tool, and I wanted to be one person doing it. I couldn't. The market said, no, you're going to die if you try to do it all with one person. Because there's support and blah, 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 and there's too many customers. You have to hire someone. And so I did. So now we're 25 people after 9 years, and we still can't keep up with it. So clearly, but I didn't want to. I said my dream was to start a very small company of one person. Shouldn't my dream count? Right? Well, yeah, sure. I could have tripled my prices or whatever, but then when you do that, I would clearly the demand was there. Either I was going to do it or someone else was going to do it. So I had to give up my dream and change my dream, come up with a new dream because the market was deciding that I couldn't be a one-person company doing it. Another example, if your dream is to, feed the kebab to a neighborhood, maybe you can do it with 2 or 3 people, right? You open a little shop, one is in the kitchen, one the cashier, and you're done. If your dream is to eradicate malaria, you're not going to do it with 2 or 3 people, right? You need people all over the world, right? So every problem has a natural size of company that should solve that problem. And so I think it's useful to take a step back, whatever you're trying to do, try to put yourself in the shoes of your customer and ask, what kind of company do I expect to provide this solution, right? A lot of the times, I talk to entrepreneurs, and what they do is something that is so broadly, what they want to do is something that's so broadly applicable that really it should be a free feature of Google, right? Or a free feature of eBay or Amazon, right? Because as a user, yes, it's useful, but it's kind of basic, and so I expect to get it as part of a bigger thing, right? So doing this exercise helps you because if the answer is it should be a feature of Google, it makes sense for this to be a feature of Google, then you better run your company to try and get acquired by you. Get funding and do that. Don't do the bootstrap, I'm going to stay 2, 3 people and try to solve this problem, right? You're going to fail. If instead you're trying to build a little software tool like mine, you don't need to hire 50 people, 60 people. I wouldn't know what to do. Give them stuff to do. I don't know. You don't need that many people at the beginning. You can start on your own. So think of the problem and how it fits with your dream and see if they're compatible. So that's, I think, that the one piece of advice that I haven't heard much. And then, I don't know, the other thing, if you're an entrepreneur, I found that the ability to make yourself like any task, even if it's crappy, is a very good skill to have. There's a lot of junk work, repetitive work, crap work that I do because I don't want my employees to be distracted by it. Right? So I take out the garbage all the time. And after a while, it's a pain in the butt. But you have to have a trick where you can say, oh, you know, this is a learning opportunity. That's the trick that I use. And that way, it becomes more bearable. And you can do any task. So I think that that's a skill that as an entrepreneur comes in handy. And then the third lesson, that's more obvious, but I would say invest in people over anything else because that's really the only thing that competitors can copy easily. Right? So we have a great team. Whenever people don't want mockups anymore, we'll make another tool. I want a team that is able to execute well on whatever idea we can come up with or our customers ask us to do. We have a professional development time and a budget so that people continue to study and get better at what they do all the time. Because if you don't study, you're going to decline. You don't stay flat. You have to continuously learn. And so we invest a lot in that. And that's for us sort of an insurance policy. All right. Any questions?
Nothing, no question, you can proceed.
Okay, well, there's one more, which is, do you use Balsamiq at Balsamiq to design Balsamiq? Yes, absolutely. I used it from the very beginning. Very, very early on in the process, it became my favorite way to wireframe. It became faster than doing it on paper, and that's when I knew I was onto something. And so, ever since the very beginning, we've used it to prototype, not prototype, wireframe. See, even I make this mistake. To wireframe new features. Right now, we just launched a YouTube playlist called Wireframing with Balsamiq. And basically, you can see me while I design new features for Balsamiq in real time. Doing it, I speak out loud about what I'm thinking about that I'm doing. And the idea there is that by watching someone who's good at doing something, you actually learn a lot, even without really trying. And so there's these 20-minute videos where you can see me design different features that we are planning on building at some point. So you can try that. All right, that concludes our interview. Yes.
So you serve an international audience. Is wireframing, is it one language for all?
Meaning, do people wireframe differently in different places?
Yeah.
I think so. That's a great question. I never heard of that. But I know anecdotally that if you go, you know the Google homepage, super clean, super, one text input, right? If you actually go to Korea and go to google.com, there's a million buttons on the homepage. That's what I heard. I haven't actually seen it myself. Which is searching. But apparently, they hated it. They're like, no, give us everything. We like it this way. And so there's definitely a cultural differences when it comes to wireframing. I'm not a UX professional. I'm a self-taught guy, so I'm going to do some research on that. Send me an email. I'll do some research on that. That could be a great blog post, actually. I'm gonna ask around. I think generally humans are humans, and they kind of respond the same way. If something is easy, it's going to be easy for everyone. But there are probably cultural differences here and there. Well, the biggest one I can think about is all the right to left movement, right? The Arab countries. we have the tendency to put the logo in the top left, right, and the search in the top right, because that's how Westerners read, right? I bet they put the logo in the top right because they read the other way, right? So I don't know enough about this, but that's very interesting. I'm going to do some research on it. You had another question down there.
What are the customers that you are proud of?
Oh, wow, nice. Well, we basically sell to everyone. If you name a software company, they're our customers. A couple of years ago, at the company retreat, I put together a slideshow of all these different brands and how much they bought from us over time. And there were all the big ones, and then I branched out and I said, all right, let me look up in our database some other companies like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, or different car companies, or I don't want to share because we don't share our customer names because of privacy. But basically, a lot of good name brands that we look up to as companies. It was great to see that they bought as well. One I'm going to share because it's pretty unique, and I don't think I'm going to get sued for this. But we sold to the Obama campaign of 2012. We sold 5 licenses to them, and I was told by someone that Obama saw some wireframes